Saban, we probably hitting every day. So full pads in the heat for 2 hours. So yeah, here we get good work in, but they don't try to kill us. We good.
Lions running back Jahmyr Gibbs on the differences between NFL practices and college practices under Nick Saban. And this is one of the realities of college football. The rules are there ain't no rules. Coach does whatever he wants. Coach is the
Pretty
emperor.
much, right.
Coach wants to put him in pads every day and beat the crap out of him. Coach can.
Yeah.
There was some talk in the past about maybe the conferences setting up some rules about limits on practices or whatnot, but in the absence of a union, in the absence of a body that has the authority and the ability to protect the players, you're going to have the coach do whatever the coach wants to do. And we've been hearing that for years. It was one of the reasons why Derrick Henry slid down the board when he came out in the draft. Hey, he got banged up at Alabama.
Right.
These guys get banged up. Nick Saban chews them up and spits them out. Nick Saban's not. He can say he's trying to lay the foundation for you to go have a successful NFL career. He's still going to get every last ounce of juice out of the orange that he can before he throws it to the NFL, and if there's no juice left, not my problem. I got what I needed.
Yeah,
so
I hear you. I think he's not as cutthroat in that department, right? You see him kind of like he doesn't let running backs be workhorses as much anymore like he did maybe 10, 12 years ago. He realizes he's got to save them a little bit, right, Mike? But, I mean, hey, college kids too, you can handle it. They can handle it. I do think there is some laying of the foundation. They are young. They're not beat up nearly to the same capacity NFL football players are. It does set it up. It is easier. I could say that to a degree too. Training camp in college, like you said, it's full pads. We were out there for 3 hours today in the first of 2 practices, and the second practice, we're going to be out there for another 2.5 hours. You said it right. The head coach is king. He's king of the campus more times than not. But in the NFL, it's refreshing because it's a totally different dynamic and how they take care of the players, and it's more efficient, and there's less players on the field too, and there's less players on the team to where guys get better quality reps as well. And there's just more of a balance because of the money, the investment, and the older players, and that's what makes it refreshing for a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm sure, at practice.
I saw someone react to the Gibbs comments by saying, well, you realize, Jahmyr, this is just spring. It's not training camp yet. You think in the spring, Nick Saban and putting him in full pads during his 4 weeks of practice and beating the hell out of them? And it's not just Alabama, but Alabama has developed that reputation.
Sure.
Those are the players we hear it from, that when they come to the NFL is actually easier than college was. And you can say, hey, they've been prepared. They've been prepared better than others to come to the NFL and have successful careers. But the balance is you don't want them to be so banged up that they have less tread on the tires than other players and therefore have shorter NFL careers because of everything they gave physically when they were at Alabama. I don't want to pick on Nick Saban.
No, but I know. They're the poster child for work and physical.
He's a West Virginia guy.
Right. Georgia's the same way. I mean, right? Like, I don't think Kirby Smart's teaching them how to do patty cake out there during practice, right? They're hitting, they're putting the pads on. So it's but your point's real. It is. But also too, Mike, and I think we had a little text conversation about this last week, you and I, and you've heard me say this too. I think also though, the flip side of this is, hey, there's a fine line for college football and Nick Saban and all of that, right? But I think there's a flip side too. There's a fine line right now, and I think there's a thought throughout the league, and I'm one that's like this. I talk about this with some, my dad and some other old school players, and I've had these conversations with a bunch of coaches where I think one of the beliefs in football around old school coaches especially is the fact that we're seeing higher injury rates right now is because guys aren't as in good football shape, that they can't, work them quite to the same capacity in the offseason and training camp like they used to be. And that's one where, I'm one to say, hey, the NFLPA and all these rules they've set up, I know their heart's in a good place, but I don't think the reality of the situation and how they set it up right now is actually benefiting players. It might benefit guy in year 10 who's really beat up up and knows exactly how to play the game, and it's like riding a bike for him. But for a guy in year 2, 3, 4, and 5, I think the current system is not set up for them to succeed, get better, or stay healthy like it was in the old days.
Well, I wrote something about that, and
I
that's
know
what
you
sparked
did.
our
Right,
text conversation.
right.
That this question of health and safety, the obsession with health and safety, but never mind the fact that the players are playing on turf and they all hate it and they all believe it makes them more susceptible to injuries, both when their head hits the turf or when their foot locks into it and their knees blow out. But otherwise, the NFL is obsessed with health and safety. The 2011 CBA, when it got down to the end, and the NFL was holding firm on its financial expectations, and the union started asking for other stuff, reduced off-season practice time, reduced training camp practice time, elimination of double sessions, fully padded 2 practices in a day. The league just started agreeing to everything because it didn't cost them anything. They were getting the financial victory they wanted, and the stuff that the NFL Players Association was asking for had nothing to do with the dollars and cents. If anything, it saved the owners some money because it's fewer days.
Exactly.
Players are in the building. You don't have to give them the per diem for being there.
Right.
So, yeah, they gladly approved. And I knew coaches and scouts at the time who were up in arms. They're like, well, the players have secured the right for basically having someone else go play the game for them. So the question is, and we've seen this time and again, early in the season, teams aren't ready.
No.
And that's the question that was posed to me by a coach. Let's take a look.
Yes.
The information is out there at the injury rates the first month of the season for the 10 years before the 2011 CBA and the time since then. How healthy are players staying in September and October because how prepared are they for that physicality? We talked about it with quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are never touched. All of a sudden they're thrown into the fire week 1. You haven't been hit for months. You weren't hit in practice. You don't have to even think about being hit.
Right.
And now you're out there.
Right.
These other players where they're not tackling to the ground.
Yeah.
We hear
they're
that all
not
the
getting
time.
enough
They don't
of that
tackle to the
either.
ground.
Right.
Yeah.
So now
and now all of a sudden they're out there.
Right.
They're out there in live reps and they haven't been
Exactly.
properly prepared for it, and guys are going to get injured.
Exactly. I just don't think the sport itself is being practiced enough. The movements of it. You can have your trainer and do all that. Even with that, I think the trainers and all of that, it's become too specific to where players aren't necessarily in shape to play the game, right? Science shows, you got to have 6 weeks of intense strength training and running to strengthen muscles and ligaments for the year. That's kind of getting cut short right now. It's kind of like, hey, get in somewhat good shape just so we can go out and have an OTA that's kind of half-assed and not that intense. And then that's where as an ex-player, I just think the NFLPA is dropping the ball in that department. And it seems like they're fighting even harder to make the practices less even than what they are right now, around the league. And that's where it's just not good. And it's the one thing I hear from coaches time and time again is just the lack of ability of them to practice, get on the field, and get guys in football shape is definitely being lost with the current CBA.
We haven't talked about this, but there was an incident at 49ers practice at an OTA where Dwayne Allen, the former Colts tight end, and he played for, I think, the Patriots as well and maybe another team. He's an NFLPA observer now. He's part of the front office at the union, and he was at a practice, and somebody got hit when they shouldn't have gotten hit, and he got out on the field, and Shanahan told him, get the hell off my field, and it got a little feisty between the two of them.
Well, he should have. He should have. I've never in my life heard of anything like that ever. And I've heard about it a little bit across the league where this has been going on. NFLPA representatives have been stepping on the field a little bit. I want to swear so badly, it's unbelievable. First off, Dwayne Allen knows better. What the F is going on? Okay? You got your standard protocol, NFLPA, but we're having guys go on the field now and tell coaches how to coach their team and how practice should be run? Go tell whoever you got to tell and let the league bylaws handle it the way they. But to jump on the field and do that, right? That to me is, you couldn't be more disrespectful or out of line. When I read that story or saw that, I just was like, oh, that's insane. Somebody better check the NFLPA. And knowing my friend Kyle Shanahan, I'm sure he was like, what? I'm running a practice here. What the F are you doing? Right, so I mean that to me crosses a boundary there, and yeah, you're right. We didn't get a chance to talk about that.
They smoothed it all over after the fact, but based upon the accounts I saw, it was spicy,
right,
between Dwayne Allen and Kyle
yeah.
Shanahan. But this gets back to the whole adversarial nature of the relationship, and there is a point where they have to realize it's symbiotic. It doesn't have to be a fight all the time, but the NFL makes it a fight all the time. The point we were making earlier, why is the NFL doing the players a favor under the gambling policy when they have full power to do whatever they want? Usually the NFL pushes and pushes and pushes, and they say, hey, it's collective bargaining. Sucks for you, good for us, and if you want any of this back, we'll see you at the table. And that's the problem now. For the NFL to get back any of these things that were achieved in 2011 by the union, you're going to have to give something up. You're not just going to get it back. The union's not going to say, you know what, we've thought about this. We've looked at the injury data. We believe that practices should be more intense in the offseason and in training camp. We're willing to concede that point. No, you're never going to concede that point unless you get something back because you know that the league wants it. That's one of the problems. Look, I'm a firm believer in unionized representation. There is strength in numbers. There is power. And without it, you would see employers run roughshod over their workforces. And there are major employers out there that will do everything they can to avoid a union because they don't want to surrender that power because it's going to cost them money and it's going to keep them from running the business the way they want to. But within the confines of that relationship, once you have it, it's important to understand it's a partnership too.
Yeah.
And there needs to be cooperation in order to, the old rising tide that lifts all boats. That's what needs to happen. It doesn't happen enough for the NFL and the NFLPA. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.